Hello and welcome to a new year and a new season of Real Talk. Come follow me. Hi, John.
Hi, Ganel-Lyn.
Are we ready?
We're ready. 2022.
Old Testament. Woo!
Are you grateful 2021 is over?
I kind of am. I feel like 2020 and 2021 was one big hodgepodge. I don't really know what to... I keep getting like a year lost.
Kind of a bad dream.
Yeah. Did that happen a year ago? Oh, no. 2 years ago. It feels like one long year. Do you feel that way?
Yes. And we had a cruise canceled. Did you have anything canceled that you wanted to do?
Yes, I was supposed to speak on a cruise that got canceled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully better days ahead.
You're right. But we're grateful because we feel like the Old Testament specifically is the missing piece.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So welcome. For those that are just finding us for the first time this year, we are so happy that you have joined us. And we hope really that you will consider friends or family members not of our faith to join us this year. We really want to have it be an interfaith experience.
Well, it's the book to do that, to sort of build bridges with, This is the core, these are the origins of Christianity.
Right.
And other religious traditions,
Right.
So much to build on.
We really thought about, what would be our why. And for me, it feels like we're going to have a journey where through the Old Testament, there's a few things I'm looking for that kind of help me return, because there's so much we could be talking about every week.
Right.
And we really try to keep it to 20 minutes. So, there's so many directions we can go. And we know some of you watch a lot of different podcasts or listen to other shows. And we hope that we bring a different perspective. But I'm looking for God in this. I really want to see where God and specifically covenants are showing up. And I would really like to pull out any opportunity to talk about women. There's some amazing women in the Old Testament.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm excited about that. And for those that have gotten the Real Talk Old Testament journal, we talk about exactly what you just said, that the Old Testament has influenced Islam, Christianity, Judaism, right? So he didn't just decide it was something to scare us or overwhelm us, but because it's old. It's the Old Testament. It can feel intimidating at times. And so we have in the Real Talk Old Testament journal intro this line that I think is hopefully for those of you that are afraid, overwhelmed, not sure if Old Testament's your thing. You've usually skipped over it on the years in the past when in Sunday school we were studying it.
And we get it
if you have, we're inviting you back, right? And this is what we write in the journal. He didn't hand our time an outdated spiritual message, meaning God. He isn't trying to confuse his children with an archaic language or hide from behind an unknown God of fury. It provides another lens where we can learn about the premortal Jesus. And so that's just kind of my intro. What are your thoughts about the Old Testament?
Yeah.
And maybe for those that are a little hesitant.
Yeah, first of all, let me just say I would understand your hesitation. Because while God didn't intend to hand us an outdated, ancient, archaic, impenetrable record it's almost impossible to find him sometimes.
Yes.
That's the reality of most of our experiences with the Old Testament.
That's real talk right there.
It can be challenging. Like similar to what you said, I call it the divine thread. I try to, we're going to encounter stories and experiences that are going to be brow-raising, to say the least. And we're going to have to work really hard to discern through the Spirit what the divine thread is in that, because it's been my experience that you can find it if you have the spirit of discernment. And to that point, I think that our article of faith is really important. Article of Faith 8 says we believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it's translated correctly. That's an important sort of qualifier. It simply means that there will be times when we come upon a story or something in this document, in this book, where something's been lost in translation. And that's why it's so important to have the Spirit with us. And there are two assumptions, I think, that create more faith crises than any other in our particular religious practices anyway, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one would be the belief that scriptures are perfect. It's just simply not the case. These are revelations by God given to his children, delivered to us in the language and through the filter of
and culture
of the mortal, usually men, that have received them, right? And so there's a lot of discerning and deciphering we have to do, a lot of work we have to do with the Spirit in order to find that divine thread. And I just want to sort of bear my testimony of this book as I've gone through it with the Spirit as my guide, my goodness, there are so many good things that we can learn and grow from and draw closer to God from.
And what's so wonderful, I love that you reference Article of Faith, is that for the next few weeks, we're not just starting with Genesis. We have the gift of an additional books of Scripture, right? Yeah. So this week specifically, we're tackling Moses 1 and Abraham 3, which feels like we're tackling different things, but there's a lot of overlap. Yeah. And in prepping for these episodes this month specifically, it's a little like, okay, wait, which
Which
is
one?
that Genesis 4 or is that the same as Moses 2?
Should we reference Genesis, Moses, Abraham, right?
And I have decided that I'm showing up for all of you that are also feeling like you're not quite sure. And so this is authentic, that I trust that what you just invited our viewers to do is to find those threads of God.
Yes.
And so every time I almost want to choose out because I'm overwhelmed that I don't know enough and I don't have past lessons to pull from.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, please.
Look, sometimes we pretend like the only way you're really going to get the message of the Scriptures is if you are some sort of like content specialist. And I just think that's ridiculous. And let me tell you why. Not that like if I want to understand the culture, the sort of the cultural milieu of the Middle East at the time of Isaiah,
Wait,
I'm
that's
sure
a good word, cultural
it is
milieu.
good. I have a master's degree in English, I want you to know. Anyway, so if we want to know that, I'm sure that knowing that will unlock some new additional insights. But I am a firm believer that the core message God intends his children on earth to receive through the Scriptures is accessible by anyone that asks in the humility of their heart and the openness of their heart. Like William Tyndale said, the plowboy, right? That was his goal, was to get this into the Scriptures into the hands of the plowboy.
Right.
Because any message God wants to convey,
He wants it for everybody.
that's right, is accessible by anyone with an open heart. If you're a content specialist in the Old Testament and you want to call us out on things that we get wrong, that's great because it'll help us get insights. But we're going to take an approach of just the layperson, just the guy that gets up early in the morning and goes to work and does his time and comes home and doesn't have time to become a PhD in Old Testament studies.
And really that is why Real Talk has resonated with millions, literally millions of people all over the world, because in 20 minutes, we can't afford to get caught into the weeds of, we love to deep dive individually and to collectively, like when we're prepping, it's so fun to try to understand the Aramaic or the Hebrew root of that word and the tradition and culture, and we may go there. But once again, Real Talk was born out of the desire to influence and support the seminary teacher that has 20 minutes, the mission president that's not sure, and the mom who's like been awake all night with teething babies and is like, there's no way I'm doing Come Follow Me this year. We want them, and then we want everyone that's not of our faith. That's really our big dream this year, right? So awesome. I love that you've kind of reminded us that God really wants us to feel like he's accessible, which is a perfect segue right into what we're hoping to discuss from the beginning on, for me, the Old Testament is the OG. That's kind of like, you may see it in our show notes. For me, I had this awareness just yesterday as I was praying and doing my own individual study, that the New Testament was really how we launched Come Follow Me, right? And it was a new program. It was the new way, right? And then all of a sudden, we didn't know a pandemic was coming. Real Talk was born, and the Book of Mormon was the year. And I've heard from so many viewers that were like, it felt parallel to 2020. Like everything I'm reading in the Book of Mormon was happening like in real time. And then we've just finished now a year of the Doctrine and Covenants. And I think there's so many parallels of struggle with leadership or change in policy or history that's problematic that allowed us in 2021 to kind of address some of that.
Good conversations.
Yeah. For me, it's full circle. This is the missing piece. To have the Old Testament, it's the OG. It's the
OG-OT.
Right. It's the OG of the OT, right? It's like pulling this full circle truth in the circle, that it's the piece. And so instead of setting it aside saying it's to whatever the qualifier is,
Find the divine thread.
Find
God's
the divine,
in there.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Moses 1, let's just jump right into it. Moses 1 is about this conversation, right, that God is telling Moses in verse 4 that thou art my son, and now for this cause I know that man is nothing, which thing I never had supposed, verse 10. So it's this paradox of verse 4, thou art my son, to verse 10, by the way, you're nothing.
Yeah,
and to me, like, what is that? Where do you even put that? And I guess the quickest way for me, and I've wrestled with this idea, and I don't think I had this awareness until a few years ago, that it wasn't a value statement that God was making to Moses.
Right.
It was a perspective change. It was trying to put Moses into the big sea of all the stars and all the sand and all the creation, so that it kind of checks, like, I take myself too serious. Sometimes when I'm going to be on camera and like, I've got to say, no, I'm nothing, right? But yet I am a daughter of God. Like, I am so loved and valued. And Neal A. Maxwell said this so perfectly, and it's Neal A. Maxwell, right? Since knees often bend long before minds, holding back this part deprives God's work of some of mankind's very best intellects. Far better to be meek like Moses, who learned things he never had supposed. Yet sadly, brothers and sisters, in the subtle interplay of agency and identity, there is so much hesitation. The surrender of the mind is actually a victory because it then introduces us to God's stretching and higher ways. Ironically, inordinate attention, even to good things, can diminish our devotion to God. I love that. Like,
I love it too.
one sentence of Neal A. Maxwell's a sermon, right?
It is. Every sentence is a sermon.
Yeah. And I just love his awareness that I have a good friend, Tiffany, shout out to her, where she spent some time not putting on makeup and being so obsessed with her hair. Not because it's bad or not that anyone else should do it, but she realized she was worshiping it almost, and she had become dependent upon it. And I feel like this is where God is saying to Moses, like, me.
Yeah.
I am the only one you should be dependent on, even if it's a good thing. And I just love that perspective change.
Especially in terms of self-worth, right? And our feelings of that. And I'm totally on board with that. I love it. This sort of paradoxical understanding of I am nothing, but thou art my son, you're in the similitude of mine only begotten. I mean, what
You're a big deal,
what a
Moses.
statement, right?
Yeah.
Abraham 3:12, my son, his hand is stretched out. Later this month, we'll be talking about Enoch. Same sort of awareness that's brought to his attention by God. So as Moses discovers where he fits in, to me the paradox is in seeing the grandeur of God. This is the beauty of it for me. He feels like nothing, but the flip side of that is, in seeing the grandeur of God, you're seeing the grandeur of your own divine potential.
Right.
And that's the beautiful paradox for me. We each have to see and experience our own nothingness compared to God before we can truly comprehend the measure of our own divine potential. And I think that's what God's doing to him. And that's what gives Moses so much confidence moving forward in this experience, right? Where, Satan's about to come to him and give him a trial.
Spoiler alert.
But at that point, Moses is like, are you kidding me? I just saw my divine potential. And so it speaks to the power of each of us experiencing for ourselves with God our divine potential and identity and self-worth.
So seeing that we are of him, that we're created in his image, that we're of that value, but then sometimes we get caught in the thick of thin things, right?
Yeah.
And we get in our own way because of that. And I think that's a perfect segue into this buffeting experience, right?
Yeah.
So here's Moses. He's had this amazing experience where he really sees all of who he could be and is and was and everything that God and his place in all of that.
Yeah.
And it inspires him. And classic.
Classic. This is
classic.
life, right? How many times has this happened to you in your life? Seriously.
Constant.
It's a regular, it's the ebb and flow of life.
Right.
With every sacred experience comes sort of like a counteractive buffeting, right?
So this is in real-time revelation, though, to share this thought. Sometimes it's in the reverse order.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Isn't that funny how there just seems to be this connection?
Kind of more like the Joseph Smith Sacred Grove, right?
Yeah.
It was the buffeting
Right.
first before the miracle happened. So,
Fascinating.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I want to take a minute for us to have this conversation because specifically he sees the glory of God. It's upon him in verse 2, right? And then God shows Moses all of his creations. Then that glory withdraws from Moses and he's left to himself and he falls to the earth, right?
Yeah.
Like how many of
Holy
us have
cow.
had those spiritual experiences where you're like, oh, It's so awesome. It's
Well-
so great,
Well,
right?
not only that, think of, okay, so you saw how nothing you are, blah, 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 right? That would be overwhelming, and that wouldn't be enough. But I'm thinking, again, just more that flip side. Imagine if he just showed you what you actually have the potential to become, and then you're brought back to where you are. I mean, I can't even imagine the contrast.
Oh
of
my
like,
gosh, that's cycling,
wow,
right?
yeah.
Right, and so then Satan shows up right there because classic, when he knows that we have a glimpse of who we are in
Right.
our divinity,
Yes.
he's like foiled again. Like John knows he's going to make an impact in the
Yes,
world. No,
yes,
I need him to doubt himself, right? Or Ganel-Lyn, she thinks she's making a difference because she's a daughter of God. No, I'm going to bring her down a few pegs. I think it's so... This is like handbook material. Like this is God making sure we as his children know. In verse 16, 18, 20, and 21, I tried to do the count. 4 times Moses is like, Satan, get thee hence, get thee hence. And every time Satan's like not backing off. And Moses gets stronger, right? So verse 21, right? Moses is getting stronger and Satan starts to tremble. And Moses receives strength. But I'm wondering if like we did a deep dive conversation, had like dinner with Moses, back in verse 16, was he feeling that strong? Like when he recognizes it's Satan and he's trying to cast him out, is he feeling like, wait, I'm confused, I'm not really sure? We see that he's at first a little confused, right? He's not really sure, like, wait, who am I talking to? And then he's like, wait a minute, I know who I am. I'm a son of God. Who are you?
How a couple phrases like he says, in verse 13, who art thou? Wait, where's thy glory? There's the confusion, right? But then these moments of clarity that you were just alluding to, you are darkness unto me. I can judge between thee and God. I mean, that's pretty beautiful.
He calls him out.
Well, he wouldn't be able to do that had he not had that experience. And again, that to me is such a vital point. That if any of us are going to be able to get to the point where we can discern and we can hold our own with the adversary, it all starts with having an experience with God concerning our own divine worth and our own identity. Without that, there's going to be some hard times for us.
It's true. And making sure Satan hears you as many times as you have to cast him out, I think it's this hand-to-hand combat. It reminds me of the moment where my son got his mission call, 6 months pass before he goes into the MTC.
Those are tough months.
But I was also so aware that we had been fighting Satan for 6 months. And I literally said something inappropriate to Satan as my son walked into the MTC. Like,
he deserved it.
You take that, dude. Like, you thought you were going to get my kid. You did not get him, right? So for all the missionaries that are holding a call or prepping, be very aware who's scared of you. That's my little preach.
Can I share a quick experience to finish?
Please, I want you to. I was just going to say, you have something to share.
I do.
So,
you know, I shared in our Getting to Know You introductory
Getting to know
sort of
John,
episode.
if you're surprised that John is here, go back last week and watch the Get to Know You.
Or don't, and you'll be fine too. But I had an awakening as an 18-year-old kid. And it was a miracle. And God granted me vision to see myself. And I didn't ever want to go back to who I was. But extricating myself, that process of coming out of where I had sort of dug myself, was a process. And it was a series of ups and downs for a couple months until 2 days after I graduated high school, I was so sick and tired of the up and down. It was so painful.
The back and forth.
Yes, it's hard. And I was like, okay, I didn't know if God hated me, loved me, disappointed in me, approved of me. I just didn't know. And what I did know is I could not move forward in my life until I knew. So I was like, that's it. I went to my room and I locked the door. And I got on my knees. And I started a prayer like I've never had before in my life. And I said, Heavenly Father, I am not going to get off my knees until you talk to me. I need to know that we're good. Till I know you approve of me, despite my ups and downs. I need to know that we're in this together. And I remember, I was like, I'm going to be here as long as it takes.
Like
and
2
I said,
days.
I will starve on my knees, and people will, in some future day, find a skeleton kneeling next to a bed and wonder what happened to this guy. That was my language. That was my language. That was my 18-year-old sort of mind. And I just prayed, and I prayed, and I said, speak to me, speak to me, speak to me. And it was the longest prayer to this point in my life I've ever given. But at one point, after a long time on my knees, for lack of a better phrase, God spoke to me. He spoke to me. He came to me. And I didn't see any grand vision or anything like that, but I'm just telling you, he came to me. And I felt, I was on my bed, right? But it felt like I was lying in his lap. And he was sitting there. And I just knew we were good. I just knew we were good. And I just wept in that awareness that despite all my ups and downs, I couldn't believe we were good.
He knew all your stuff,
Yes.
and you were worth
Yes.
that.
You just reminded me of a quote. Can we finish on a quote?
Yeah.
This is from a contemporary theologian. His name is Richard Rohr. I really like, he sends out, daily sort of prompts for study. He says, your image of God creates you or defeats you. There is an absolute connection between how we see God and how we see ourselves and the universe. And then this part is my invitation for us this week. Without an interior journey of prayer or inner experience, much of religion is largely just childhood conditioning.
Right.
And to me, that experience as an 18-year-old kid, I was never the same. I never looked back, honestly. Now, it's been a bumpy ride since, but I've never wanted to go back. I was reborn that night. And I just continue to learn in the safety of the arms of the atoning grace of Jesus Christ.
It feels like the King Benjamin people that had no more desire. It didn't mean
Yes.
that they didn't mess up.
Right,
They just
right.
didn't have the desire. Because once you know whose you are, everything else is white noise, right? And so thank you for sharing that. Do you want to give our formal invitation
Yes,
to
please,
our Real Talkers?
This week, we would just encourage you to find time to do whatever it takes, knowing that God speaks to us all uniquely in his own time, in his own way, in language that we understand. Just devote some time to this interior journey of coming to know God and having him speak to you. It's my testimony through my experiences, and I know Ganel-Lyn, you've had similar experiences, that if you put forth the effort and the time, he will speak to you in his own time, in his own way.
Great. We'll see you again next week.
Do you like Real Talk? Come follow me.
Then like and subscribe.